welcome. I mean, yeah. So I just want to check with you if you had any questions, of what you're looking at or anything like that before I get into mine, before we really like light this candle. Is there anything you want to question about before we go?
I mean, the hat. I got to know about the hat.
Well, that's more of a metaphor, Bethany. If it wasn't already obvious, we're exploring. This is a podcast, an interview about exploring, right? Heading out, finding the truth, right? Finding nuggets of knowledge, wisdom, maybe a little bit of humor, maybe a bit of entertainment. We're looking for the next great soundbite, Bethany. So that's why the Explorer cap is on. That's first. Just catching folks up. Like Bethany and I go way back, and I feel like we're kindred spirits. We've worked together in and out of a couple of different companies over the last few years. I feel like she gets me, I get her. So we upped a little of the hilarity here. But anyway, so you asked about the cap. We've explained that. Okay, so let's just get into lightning round here, Bethany. If you had an intro track, which I didn't provide to you, but if we had a walkout track, if I was like, Bethany Murphy, like, event planner and director extraordinaire, what would be the song then that I would cue when you came out, you think?
I mean, I got to go with Return of the Mac because
oh my gosh.
It's a great song. Bringing me back to high school and
so what part of it are we hitting? Or just return? Because you only have about 20 seconds. Is it press that opening bit, which is the Return of the Mac, the Return of the Mac. Yeah, really good. Yeah. So we've done a bunch of events together, a couple different companies. It's great. So if there's anything else you just want to add since I talked about us working together, any favorite?
I mean, it's got to be Flash Miami because it was my only in-person event during my time at Drift, given it was coming out of COVID and, we were very committed to doing an in-person event and made it happen with lots of COVID precautions that I don't care to talk about. But we did it. It was awesome. It was our MC. It was great. Had about 250 people in Miami.
So let's go back. So we just talked about how we knew each other. We talked about some of the highlights of that event, which I agree got me almost on this whole entire track that I've been on here leading up to this business and everything. It was like, wow, and the emceeing role is an often overlooked, but super important role when you put together big events like this and everything that goes into it, like planning, like being the spokesman for the narrative and everything is cool. But back to you, Bethany, your events experience, what was the first job? Because you've been in events for 20 years, right? So I've known you for a few of those, but how'd you get into this? I think that's always interesting. Is what was your first job that you might call your first events job, however you would.
Yeah. So I went to college to be a lawyer. I was a political science major. I was going to go to law school. And my junior year, my best friend at school came to me one day. She's like, I found the perfect career for you. You're going to be in events. And I was like, no, I'm going to be a lawyer. I'm going to law school. I go to the University of Michigan. I'm going to be a lawyer.
Yeah. They got a good law program there.
Yeah. And I probably would not have gotten into law school there. But she's like, no, this is perfect for you. It's you're OCD, this is great, right? You're super organized. You should check this out. She happened to have a family friend who owned her own meeting planning company. So that summer I interned for her on site at a couple of events and just fell in love with, I think, the idea that, you could work so long on something and actually see it all come together, which is really unique. I think not a lot of people have that in their jobs. And just it super rewarding, right? To just see everyone. And I think it just drew me to, it just kind of drew me to it. And it's certainly one of the highlights. One of the things I love the most about my job is being on site and running around and being there and seeing everyone. And
some people would say that'd be the scariest part for them. You know what I mean?
I know everyone's like, are you nervous? Are you nervous when you get on site? And I'm like, you know what? At that point, I've done everything I possibly can to make sure that things run smoothly. And now it's kind of in the hands of the hotel, in the hands of our production vendor, right? In the hands of everyone that we've spent months and months preparing. And so I don't really get stressed on site.
I've actually noticed that about you. I've not seen you Hardly ever, to be honest. Like, I know that all of us have to deal with just like the regular tension. I know what like a low simmer looks like, just in life like that. I live it. But like, I've not seen you be like, what? Like, and I've run into you at a bunch of events. You are not that way. And you also described it to me as like at a certain point, like you just said, you get everybody lined up, you have everything planned, you've done as much as you can do. And it's almost like a wedding. You're like, now we're at the wedding. You have to kind of let it just ride out at this point and count on your team.
And be ready, of course, if the
improvise is always
your way.
But you're able to deal with those, I think, because everything else was ironed out, right?
Yeah. And it takes a lot of, I mean, look, that's not to say I'm never stressed out, right? Like I'm super stressed out leading into an event.
Yeah.
For months. But I think it's that like stress and time and preparation that, hopefully ends up leading to
I also see a lot of joy. I see a lot of enjoyment from you too. Like you're sort of, like you just said earlier, you're like, it's just great to see something come together. I think that's probably why stress is not the leading emotion. Like when I run into you there, you're like, we worked for months, to get to here. So part of you is like, I want to be a part of this and like help this thing.
And I want to have fun. Look, like I want to enjoy it. I want to enjoy all the hard work that me and the team did to get us there. And so I try.
Well, I'm glad you didn't go into law, Bethany. That would have been a waste. Either that or your trial experiences would have been like remarkable.
I do still love event contracts. So that has followed me.
Oh, yeah. But I was going to say, what would you say? Because I think events is not something that everybody naturally falls into. There isn't like a major in it and stuff like that. And you were originally going to go into law. Do you feel like your unique background, how does that show up? Or what do you think is sort of a superpower or something that you've found you index a little harder on as an event leader and planner and stuff like that versus some other organizer or some other leader of similar events? Is it?
Yeah. I mean, I think
part of it. Yeah.
I think two things, and everyone just always laughs at me because it's probably these two things are probably not things most events people love.
Yeah.
But one is contracts and negotiations. And I think, I spend a lot of time building relationships in this industry and, fairly negotiating contracts. But I think it's like a little bit of a high for me, right? Like how much money can I save in this negotiation and then budgets.
Those are two things that probably events people could have a stronger muscle with. And I hear you. It's probably not the thing that they go, oh, if I'm good at that, events, definitely. Like leading and organizing events. So let's double click on the two things you said. Contracts. What is something that you feel like events people are just not taking advantage of, like dropping the ball? Give us a quick thing on like contracts. It's just like you just shake your head, like a little bit of eye roll. Like people are not doing this. This like one thing alone would be if events people were just more X about the contracts. What do you think it was?
I mean, I think diligent, right? I mean, you really like I read every word of my contracts. I make sure that all the terms, and of course, like working really closely with our legal team on like indemnification and force majeure, but it's super important, especially with larger contracts, that events people are reading and understanding and negotiating again for the best business case, right? And it's hard. It's a partnership with hotel, right? You have to have a relationship with hotels, but I think, cancellation, I always negotiate the cancellation. There's always a grid of cancellation, right? Always negotiate cancellation to be the most favorable that you possibly can. Concessions. I think sometimes people just go with whatever concessions that hotel offers. You can certainly always push concessions from a, rate is more challenging, but like comp room ratio or food and beverage discount or credit rebate to the master, right? Like hotels want to earn your business. And so I think, again, being super fair, but always like pushing a little bit to get like, as many concessions as you can negotiated into your contracts.
Love that. That was juicy, super juicy. And speaking of which, Bethany, we're doing a quick segue here to another segment, which is sort of an ASMR break here, which is which of these items, Bethany, would you rather me bite into over the microphone? Would you rather it be an apple? I have a piece of toast that my daughter left this morning at the breakfast table. I have 2 gummy bears, and I have a small tomato, a grape-sized tomato. Which of these, for our audiences listening, pleasure or disgust, whichever it would.
I'm gonna go. I'm a little disgusted already, but I'm gonna go apple.
Oh, wow. Okay.
I just feel like that's a good lunch right there. That sounds like a good apple right there, Nick.
It was ripe. It was good.
Yeah.
I'm pleased.
Can't have mealy apples. Terrible.
I'm like, we just talked about contracts. We're biting into an apple. Now we're going to go back to budget and double click on us for that, like budgeting, where are, if event leaders, directors of events, VPs of events and stuff like that, if they just blank with the budget, it's a drop the ball often, it's low hanging fruit. What are some of those?
I have two things, I think. Number one is your budget is a working document. Like you should be in that document every single day. I'm in my budget every day in the months leading up to it.
Wow, what's happening there? People attacking it? They're moving it around, or
you're getting real-time quotes and estimates from vendors. So you're plugging in real-time numbers. You're working with the hotel and seeing where your food and beverage is going to come in, right? And you're adjusting. There's just constant adjustments to be made. You're booking your keynote speaker, so you've got that chunk, right? You got to take your kind of big chunks first. Number two is always have a buffer, right? I think depending on the size of the budget, I would say between 5 and 10%. I always try to hold. And that's for consumption items, right? You never know how many sodas, waters, candy bars, whatever, right? Alcohol, right? You just never know. That's kind of like, I always put a placeholder, but like it's a little bit of a moving target. You never know if you're going to have like hotel attrition, right? You don't fill your room block. So you have to have just always have a hold. Because I think if you don't, you're probably setting yourself up. You're setting yourself up to go over budget at the end of the day.
Well, obviously, Bethany, these things and having known you a little bit and knowing your career background, you've been through all these minefields before. Like I can hear with every example you're bringing up, you've probably run into that in your career in the past. So, you're like, watch out for that now, or you've been mentored by somebody who had. So then what do you do if you're starting out and you don't have all this experience like that to know those things? And hadn't listened to this podcast, which was a mistake. But it's a huge mistake. But anyway, like what would you do facing those two things for the first time and knowing your OCD and you want to nail it? Hire a consultant, get a template. What have you done?
Yeah, I mean, I think, look, there's a lot of groups out there for event planners to learn from each other. There's Slack groups, there's educational groups like MPI and PCMA, right? There's a lot of education in the industry out there. And look, like you probably are going to make mistakes. I mean, that's probably going to happen. You're going to have a budget and you're going to go over and then you're going to be like, oh crap, how do I avoid doing that in the future? Right. And so I think it's a little bit of that, but certainly, always be learning and looking out there for people that can mentor you and teach you, because it does take time. I've done this for 22 years. I mean, it's taken me a long time, but I feel like I've learned a lot in that time, and that's why I love doing things like this, to try to get some knowledge out there.
I think we're doing a darn good job at it. Let's do a little bit of a role play, if we could, right? I just want to see what you would do if I was your boss. You're in a similar position as what you're doing now, but you're not working for 6sense and stuff like that. You just kind of got started at my B2B SaaS company. We've been around for a few years. We've got a bunch of customers. We're not like a force in the market, but we do okay. Like we're on the magic quadrant, so to speak, but we're not necessarily a leader, but we're there, up there. We're in it. So I go, hey, Bethany, thanks. So glad you came on to join us. We have not had an event strategy. And, I would just like I want to see what you get inside your mindset. What would you ask first? Whatever. Hey, Bethany, we just want to put on an event. And I figured I'll only tell you this much. This is all I know, is that good software companies should put on a customer event. We've done some half-hearted ones in the past. We want to put on an annual customer event that's kind of like as good as what you've done in the past, Bethany, for some of those other software companies. What do you need to know?
Understanding what the goals are, right? Like that's number one. Like, sure, I can build you a budget and build out a program, but like, what are you trying to accomplish with this event?
I want customers to just renew whatever they bought. I also want them to expand and upgrade to my new thing they've never heard of, and that we're going to launch at the event. So it's also a product launch. I also want to bring prospects and have net new customers get converted at this event and like fall in love with us. I also want to have there be like partners, both like services partners and tech partners, come, existing ones, and have them feel like there's a special spot for them and have them be featured. And I also want like prospective partners of both to come as well. And I also want to just like blow up our brand and have like a lot of news outlets and analysts like just talking about us after the event too. I want it to be like a big brand building, buzz building event, Bethany. You ever heard of something like that, all those goals before?
I mean, I would say like, yes, of course, everyone wants all of that, right? But I think to start, you really have to narrow down like what is the primary goal, right? What is the primary goal? And then start from there. And of course, like it takes years to build a successful customer event. It does. It takes time. It takes trust, right? The industry, like other brands have to trust that you're going to put on an event in order for them to pay to sponsor it, right? Like there's a lot of things that go into something like this, like to start small, right? Like first of all, what is the primary goal? Let's start with like maybe it's a customer advisory board event, right? Like maybe it's something that's not a user conference, and then you kind of build.
So what you did there is first you wanted me to know this is not something where you're going to go from 0 to 60, like on the first try. Also, you're kind of getting me to think of, you're trying to steer me into like, what's a reasonable sort of event that I can get this guy or gal to pull off, this organization, right? Like,
and it takes resources, like a ton of resources, right? It's like, it is not just the events team, right? Like, of course, we're doing a lot of the project management and the logistics and the behind the scene, the enablement, but like we are working with MOPS and customer marketing. The rest of our ABX team is driving meetings. Sales and customer success are getting customers and prospects there, right? Like it is a cross-functional effort, and it takes time to get people on board.
So I'm trying to put people in like your shoes. So what do people usually say back to you then? Given everything you just said, all that you're like, it's a big lift. We have to get every department aligned. Like it is, we've got to focus and prioritize. Do they ever just be like, okay, fine, Bethany, I'll see you. Is 200 people unreasonable? Is $500,000 unreasonable? Like where do they start putting flags in the ground usually to start? If they don't have a tradition of doing this, you're trying to bring us around. Like what's usually the first thing that people try to pull off? Like, or what is even a reasonable starting point? What do you hope I would say? What do people typically say? And what do you wish they would say to start?
I mean, I think number one is like this. You have to have exec buy-in. So like I always go back and I'm like, is this real? Like, is this real? Like before I put all this time and energy into setting up some sort of proposal for you, like, is this really going to happen? Right? Like, has the CEO down, like all exec team, everyone's aligned with what we're trying to do here? Like, I think that has to happen. Number two is like, has the CFO approved the budget? Because we're not going anywhere. Like, I'm not going to start again, like sourcing venues and doing all this, that like, do we have a budget?
All right. So your executive sponsor's like, well, CFO standing by. They understand we got to do this. They know that they've set aside some cash. They don't know if it's $300,000 or $1 million. Do you have any rules of thumb? Like, what's a benchmark for us? We just thought it was we've got 1,500 customers. So we figure if we get 250 of them, 300 of them to show up in Chicago next year. I don't know. Like, is there something you would want to tell them? All right, we're willing to hear you out on that. We understand we need budget. Is there some sort of other benchmark? It's at least $10,000 per person or anything like that?
I mean, I think it depends. I really always start with a revenue plan, right? So how much do I think I can make in ticket sales and sponsorships, right? And that's based on historical data. And I look at trends, right? What are other B2B conferences charging for tickets? Like, how are we going to, right?
Or the communities and the social, like being able to talk to other leaders and see other benchmarks.
Yeah, we do it, right. We reach out to like other, I have a lot of industry contact, right? Like, what are you charging? We do research online. We figure out like, we want our event to be reasonably priced. I think there is a balance, right? Of like, 2 awesome evening events plus food and beverage all day and specialty coffee and whatever, right? That costs a lot. And so I think you really have to build out a revenue plan from the top down and then take that plan and say, okay, if we have 1,000 people and let's just estimate $3,000 per person, how much money do you think you can make, right? How much money do you have? Like the CFO said, you have $500,000, right? You think you can bring in $200,000 between ticket sales and sponsorships. And I would always err on the conservative side, right? Because it's great if you end up making $1 million in sponsorships, but like you probably should plan for on the low side, at least at the beginning. And then build out your budget with those big buckets, right? Like how much you're going to spend on food and beverage, hotel, entertainment, right? Like what are those big kind of buckets? And then go from there. But I think you have to be upfront and set expectations with executives. Like if you're going to only give me $500,000, like this is what you're going to get.
That's right. Good. I love this. I was actually wondering if you could share with us, in your opinion, are events in general, or maybe you could say the best produced events, always loss leaders in that they usually cannot cover their own budget on their own in just ticket sales and sponsorships, but will require some sort of uplift in new product sales or new product upgrades? Do you always operate under that mentality? Are there scenarios or certain types of events where you can actually be in the black, just on ticket sales and sponsorships alone? Is that never the case? Just any thoughts on that when people think about what?
Yeah, I mean, from my experience, it's really hard to cover all of the costs. I mean, I don't know. Like, I don't know how inbound, I mean, their speaker budget alone must be $5 million. I don't know. Like I don't know how they do it. And they charge for tickets, but they give free ticket, right? You also have to like realize, and we did this at Drift too, like when you start an event, you're very likely going to have to comp a lot of tickets.
Hmm.
So it's almost like ticket revenue the first year is probably going to be pretty low because you have to get people there. You have to get people in the room to see like what it is you're trying to do. Again, so that you can then build on it in the coming years.
Obviously, people, if you put on a good event series, people want, like, how can we keep this going? And they'll partner with you as attendees, as sponsors or whatever, to help keep something good going if it's valuable. That's, I think, the most amazing part about all of it is people are like, I can't wait for next time. Like, we're pulling for you. Like, especially if it's still on its way up and ramping up in terms of participation and quality and everything else. It's just like gets better and better. It's like snowballing. So people are like, yeah, if you're going to put it back into the production value of the event, which I think that's probably the only time you get attendees up in arms, when they don't feel that value trade-off. They're like, what the heck? We had to pay through all this and we got barely anything.
Right. Then you come and you have to like pay for your own lunch or you don't get paid.
A takeaway I'll just hammer down for everybody else is your mileage may vary. Everybody's listening. And what Bethany also points out is that it's changed over time, depending on where you are in like the life cycle of this event and stuff that you're doing. It's going to be something different at a certain time. And she doesn't know what it's going to be for you, but you should probably be watching it and having these internal discussions with your stakeholders and consciously making these trade-offs over time to maintain the revenue plan. Like you said, you just have always had that proper emphasis on something that I do think event people overlook is like the sponsorship, the revenue part. How are we going to underwrite this thing? How are we going to make this not such a massive crater for the company that they can't capitalize on the momentum?
I think it's really nice to have for event leaders like a sales team and a customer success team that is bought in to the events that you're running and see the value. And I think that takes time.
When I was on HubSpot Academy, helping put on the content for inbound, I would say that to all the CSMs. I'm like, any customer who gets on a plane and comes here and spends like a week with us and sees all the other customers and like, they are going to be a believer again. If they were sour going in or on the fence, like they are not going to quit most likely, for a couple months, unless they have some sort of negative experience at the event, which is not going to happen, like if you can help it. So I just feel like, yeah, it's a totally great retention play. It puts a shot in the arm for the customer and it makes a lot of sense. So Bethany, with our waning minutes here, because we got really juicy there, really good data, let's have some fun. I'm going to give you, I have this deck. Have you ever done this with your kids in the car? I have this thing called the Storymatic, where it's a stack of cards, which is like, this is a bunch of characters. It's just a stack of like different characters, like vampire or whatever. And then there's like a stack of plots, like situations that they're in, like a warning is ignored or whatever. You're supposed to make a story out of it. But I thought it'd be fun, Bethany, to improv here. Which would you pick? I'm going to give you 6 things that could be featured in this event. You've just helped me wrap my head around our first customer event, right? We're going to make sure it's properly financed. Sales is going to be on board. We're going to sell sponsorships. We're not going to, give too much away and a good value balance. But listen, which would you rather have? So we're going to have either a firefighter, the owner of a hot air balloon, the driver of an ice cream truck, and like whatever accoutrement comes with that. All right. Like just use your imagination here. So owner of a hot air balloon, driver of an ice cream truck, royalty, caretaker of an elephant. So I'm just assuming, let's see, they come with an elephant. Firefighter, what could you do with these things? Or grandparent or grandparents in general. Don't see those featured enough in events, okay? So you got 6 items there. I'm gonna give it to you one more time. Grandparent, firefighter, caretaker of an elephant with an elephant, owner of a hot air balloon with a hot air balloon, driver of an ice cream truck with, I don't know, at least one ice cream truck. If we need more, that's fine. And royalty. Which of those jumps out at you as either a fun chance to take or something that reminds you that it has worked? Which might you pick if you could pick 2 of those items to either pair up or bookend the event around?
I mean, I've always wanted to go on a hot air balloon a little bit.
Okay. Yes.
But I have offered it at an event as like a early morning sunrise experience, go on a hot air balloon. I'd have to say ice cream truck. I mean, everyone likes an ice cream truck. You play all
cream's just happiness.
And like people are going to be happy. Right.
Good. All right. You went for the strong like bet experiences. And I don't blame you for that. And that just shows you something. Event people, you got to stretch it a little bit, but you got to keep you're with the public. You know what I mean? I think about that with events. Like you have to somewhat think about the general comfort level versus let's be edgy and take a chance and this will appeal to a certain segment, but then it's going to leave everybody else out in the cold mentally or emotionally, right? They're going to be like, I don't know how to relate to this.
And I do, like, I have realized in doing this for so long that, like, I'm never going to please everybody. I mean, I am a perfectionist and I read every comment that is left on every survey and I get super worked up. Like, how did that, but then I'm like, okay, that was one person.
Okay, that's a big deal. You just said you listen to everybody, you take every comment in. So that's a given. But what is something where you're like, this is a hot chili, like need to make moves, need to put budget against this, or like this must or must not happen next year?
Yeah, I mean, I guess I would say frequency, right? Because you could take, like I take every comment super personally. But I do think that if one person says it, it's probably not that big of a deal.
Yeah.
If 10 out of 25 people that fill out your survey are saying it, it's probably a trend and probably something you need to look at, right?
That's a good reminder. Because at least people are like, oh, I looked at the feedback from last week, and then they move on. But it's like, yeah.
Exactly. Like we look at it right after the event when the results are coming, right? And then it's like, okay, when we start planning again, let's go back and read the comments and remind ourselves. And you know, I think it's super important to always be improving and learning from what you did, right? Not to say that all of our events are perfect. They're not, right? And so how can we learn and improve and adjust?
Then speaking of which, let's talk about the experiences now. Here's which of these 6 experiences. We're going to have a hot air balloon. That's a good idea. Ice cream trucks, they'll be there. But I just picked these out. It's so great. So one is hunger. The other is first day on the job. You want to bring that vibe in somehow. Key that nobody else has. You know, there's some sort of like a little, you've got something, nobody else, you're special. Wish comes true for an individual, for everybody. Something is there's like a little star going across the sky. The quest continues. Did it continue from the prior to the event, going into the event? Is it after the event? Is there a quest at the event? And also, where did it go? Did something vanish? Is there something taken out of the product? But once again, it's would you rather have an experience? Wish comes true. Key that nobody else has. First day on the job. Hunger. I'm like, let's just use the sense, okay? Nobody indexes on hunger. How can we use hunger somehow? The hunger for achievement, hunger for food. I don't know.
I don't want anyone to be hungry at my event, so that's not a good one.
Talk to me about that. More about that. If you had an encounter where that was has hunger.
I just feel like, you know, it's again, like we always ask about dietary restrictions. I go through every single dietary restriction, like just
don't play games with food
above and beyond to accommodate, because otherwise you will get comments that say there weren't enough vegan meals, there weren't enough, right? And so
that's a great point. We don't want hunger. We're taking it off the list. It's not even on.
I don't like hunger.
What else stood out?
Special key is cool. It would be really cool to have, like, you know, our VVIPs have this like special key and only they can access this speakeasy that's like, you know, has super high end, maybe gifting and maybe some booze in there. I don't know.
So key that nobody else has intrigued you and reminded you of, yes, there's a play for that. Anything about wish comes true, the quest continues, or where did it go that reminded you of like stay away from that or remind you?
I mean, I wrote down wish comes true. Try to like sprinkle moments throughout, right? Like moments throughout the evening event that are surprise and delight. Last year we had a drone show, right?
Which was awesome.
So create those like memorable and Instagrammable moments that make people remember the event, right? Like I think everyone walked away from that party being like, holy crap, like I remember that night. Like that was a fun night.
I totally remember both those nights.
Or don't remember, but you know.
Yes. Can you just tell us, for people who want to get there, like to that scene, and you posted about it on LinkedIn so people can see some of the photos, and I posted about it like this, just look at Breakthrough 24, especially the party, quote unquote, like capital T, capital P party at Breakthrough 24. Any just like lessons learned for people who whether they're at that event or they just couldn't go and they just watched the video and they said, man, I wish I could one day be in charge of putting something like that on.
Yeah. I mean, look, it takes good partnerships, right? We cannot do everything in-house. And I think it's, sure, we had a good budget for the event, right? We went all out. Not everyone has that, right? And so I think it's like, if you don't have that big budget, find inexpensive ways to create those surprise and delight moments. I think it starts with thinking about the attendee experience. Like we spend a lot of time thinking about the attendee experience from the moment they walk into the event to the moment that they leave. And we want to create that allegiance to the brand.
Let's roll it up. Bethany's roll it up. We talked about you need to make sure you know what's your main focus and priority for the event. What's your revenue plan for the event? How are you going to cover as much of your costs as possible? How's the company going to make money 10x their return on this event? Make sure you're sweating the contracts. There's opportunity, there's leverage there. There's opportunity to protect yourself better. There's opportunities to save money better. Make sure you're sweating the budget constantly from the beginning. And then as the costs like roll in, as things get adjusted, build yourself a buffer where you can. Make sure you're networking all the time with other people in the events industry so you get good benchmarks and you don't have to go through the minefield first on all that stuff I'm hearing, right? And then also partner up. That was another revelation. It was like, make sure like no person is an island. No event leader is like doing all the stuff themselves and taking all the chances themselves. They're working with agencies, designers, consultants, venues. There is expertise and there are partners, like you say, to help you every step of the way if you can find and pick and build the right ones. It sounds like that's indispensable. And then also just remember to get creative, that not every problem has to be solved with money. It can be solved with the ability to just take some chances and get creative. And that's honestly, Bethany, what we're trying to frickin' do with this podcast is like, it's yes, hilarity for hilarity's sake, but also it's like, yes, you put on a hat. It's symbolic. Take some chances, man. There's sometimes like entertainment and remarkability is not always an expensive thing. It's something that requires courage or just a little bit of confidence and some curiosity to try out. So that's my recap. Do you feel like I covered it or some other things you want to maybe drop home?
That's a great recap, Nick.
Well, it's because I was listening attentively. Hey, well, I honor your presence. I honor your
It's
experience.
almost like AI generated that recap for you.
I'm better. You know what I mean? Like I'm a
You're
strong,
probably more topical. That's for sure.
That's exactly right. All right, my friend. Well, I'm glad you shared and we learned. I'm glad that we both entertained. I cannot wait to see you at your next event that you and your team will be producing. I will be there.